The shy farmer woke up early as he always did, just as the first golden rays of the sun touched the fields. The soft sound of the wind brushing through the wheat was the only music he needed. He had lived in this small western town all his life, and every day followed almost the same rhythm. He tended to his crops, fed his animals, and returned to his small, weathered house by nightfall. People in the town knew him as quiet, humble, and a little awkward in social situations. Most of the townsfolk liked him, though no one knew much about him. On that particular morning, he had planned to take the horses out to graze near the edge of his property, where the grass was greener and the small creek provided fresh water. The morning air was crisp, and the dew on the grass sparkled like tiny diamonds. He moved carefully, not wanting to startle the animals. It was during this peaceful routine that he noticed her. She appeared suddenly, standing at the edge of the field with the sun behind her, casting a golden glow around her figure. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her hair was dark and long, her eyes calm but intense, and there was a quiet confidence in the way she carried herself. She looked straight at him, unafraid, almost as if she had been expecting him. The farmer froze for a moment, unsure whether to greet her or continue with his work. He wasn't used to strangers, and certainly not strangers who seemed to know exactly where to find him. Finally, he stepped closer, brushing his hands on his pants nervously. "Good morning," he said softly, unsure if she could hear him over the wind. "Good morning," she replied, her voice steady and warm. "I need to speak with you." Her words were direct, unusual for someone in this town. Normally, people would smile politely, exchange a few pleasantries, and move on. But she looked at him in a way that demanded attention. Curiosity mixed with nervousness in the farmer's chest. He had never been good at conversation, especially with someone so confident. Okay," he managed to say. "What? About?" She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. "I want a baby from you," she said plainly. The words hung in the air like a sudden clap of thunder, shocking him completely. He blinked several times, unsure if he had heard correctly. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, feeling the heat rise to his cheeks. His mind raced, trying to understand what she had just said. This was no ordinary conversation. He had never expected anything like this in his quiet, orderly life. I don't understand," he finally stammered. "Why? Me?" She smiled, not in a teasing way, but in a gentle and sincere manner. "Because I trust you. I see something in you that I haven't seen in anyone else. You are honest. You are kind. You work hard. And I believe you could give life to a child who will be loved and cared for." The farmer felt a strange mix of emotions, shock, confusion, and something else he couldn't name. He had always been a lonely man, living a life of quiet routine, never daring to dream of love or family. And now, here was this woman, bold and fearless, offering him a chance at something he had never imagined. He rubbed his hands together nervously. I don't know what to say. His words trailed off. He had no way to express what he felt, not because he didn't want to, but because he had never experienced anything like this before. "I don't expect an answer right now," she said softly. "I only wanted to be honest with you. I wanted you to know how I feel. Think about it. I'll be around if you decide you are ready. Actually, With that, she turned and walked slowly toward the edge of the woods, leaving him standing there, staring after her. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and earth. But the farmer hardly noticed. His mind was spinning with thoughts he had never allowed himself to think before. Could he trust her? Could he imagine a life so different from the one he had always known? For the next few days, he moved through his routine almost mechanically. He fed the animals, worked in the fields, and returned home each evening. But his thoughts were consumed by the Apache woman and her bold proposition. He replayed the encounter again and again in his mind, wondering if he had misunderstood her, wondering what it would mean for him and his quiet life. Each morning, he went to the edge of the field, half hoping to see her again, half afraid he would. When she appeared, it was always with the same calm confidence, as if she had never doubted her decision. And slowly, as they spent more time together, the farmer began to see her not just as bold, but as someone who understood life in a way he never had. She would tell him stories of her childhood, the traditions of her people, and the hardships she had faced. He listened with rapt attention, fascinated by her strength and honesty. She, in turn, asked about his life, his work on the farm, and his dreams, if he had any. For the first time, he found himself speaking freely, sharing thoughts he had kept buried for years. He realized that she wasn't just asking for a child. She was asking for a connection, a partnership, and a trust that went beyond words. Her openness challenged him, made him confront feelings he had avoided. It wasn't easy for him. He was still shy, still unsure of how to respond. But he could feel a change within himself, a quiet stirring of courage he hadn't known existed. The townsfolk began to notice the frequent visits of the Apache woman, and whispers followed. Some were curious, some disapproving. But the farmer didn't let it disturb him. He was learning that life could offer unexpected moments, moments that could reshape everything. And he was beginning to realize that sometimes it took courage not only to live, but to embrace the unexpected. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the farmer and the Apache woman sat by the creek. They watched the water flow gently over the stones, listening to the quiet symphony of nature. She turned to him and smiled, a smile that spoke of patience, understanding, and hope. "You don't have to decide today," she said. "But know that life is short. Sometimes, we have to take chances if we want to truly live." The farmer nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. This meeting, this strange and unexpected encounter, had changed him. He was no longer just a shy farmer living a quiet life. He was a man facing new possibilities, a man beginning to understand the power of honesty, trust, and courage. And as he watched her walk back toward the edge of the woods, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, a spark of hope, a quiet excitement for what might come next. For the first time in his life, he allowed himself to imagine a future that was bigger, brighter, and filled with possibilities he had never dared to dream. The days passed slowly, but with a quiet sense of anticipation for the shy farmer. Every morning, he would check the edge of his fields, hoping to see the Apache woman standing there. And each day, she appeared, walking with the same calm confidence, carrying a basket of wildflowers or a small gift she had picked up during her travels. At first, the farmer felt awkward around her. He was still shy, still unsure how to speak freely without stumbling over his words. But the Apache woman seemed patient, as if she understood that his silence was not rudeness, but a part of who he was. She would smile, sometimes laugh softly, and slowly, the tension in his chest would ease. They began to spend more time together, not just by chance, but by choice. She would help him in the fields, teaching him small techniques from her own experience, while he showed her how he cared for his animals. Each shared task, no matter how ordinary, became a moment of connection, a silent understanding building between them. One afternoon, while they rested under a large oak tree, the woman spoke about her life. "I have always believed that family is more than blood," she said. "It is about love, respect, and trust. That is why I came to you. I see those qualities in you. I know you could provide a good life for a child, not just with your hands, but with your heart." The farmer listened, feeling a warmth he had never known. His heart pounded. But it was not fear. It was something more, something hopeful. He realized that this woman, so bold and honest, had seen something in him that even he had not recognized. For the first time, he began to imagine life differently, not just for himself, but for the possibility of a small family, a life filled with laughter, learning, and love. However, life in the small town was not without its challenges. People began to notice their growing bond and whispered behind closed doors. Some were curious, asking questions about the woman and why she had chosen him. Others were less kind, judging the situation without understanding the connection that had formed. The farmer felt a tension he had never experienced before. He had always been content in his solitude, but now he realized that following his heart might bring both joy and scrutiny. Despite this, he continued to meet her in the fields, by the creek, or under the trees. Each meeting strengthened the trust between them. They shared stories of their childhoods, their dreams, and their fears. She spoke of her people, of the lands she had traveled, and of the values she cherished. He spoke of the farm, the animals, the quiet life he had led, and the longing he sometimes felt for something more. The Apache woman listened carefully, never interrupting, never judging. She offered guidance when it was needed, but allowed him to discover his own courage. Slowly, the farmer began to speak more openly, sharing thoughts he had long kept hidden. He found himself laughing more, smiling more, and feeling emotions he had pushed aside for years. One evening, as the sky turned shades of pink and orange, they sat together by the creek. The water flowed gently, reflecting the colors of the setting sun. She looked at him, her eyes calm and steady. "Have you thought about what I said?" she asked softly. He nodded, hesitating for a moment. I think I understand now. I have been afraid all my life. Afraid to speak. Afraid to hope. But you make me see that maybe life can be different. That maybe I can be brave enough to take a chance." She smiled, reaching out to gently touch his hand. "There is no rush. Courage is not about moving fast. It is about moving at the pace that feels right to you. And sometimes, it is about trusting someone else to walk beside you." That evening, the farmer felt a shift within himself. He realized that he could no longer ignore the possibility of love, of connection, of creating a new life together. The thought of a child no longer frightened him. Instead, it brought a quiet hope, a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. In the days that followed, they continued to grow closer. The Apache woman shared small traditions from her culture, teaching him songs, stories, and simple ways to honor the land and life around them. He, in turn, shared the routines of the farm, the ways to care for animals, and the simple pleasures of tending to the earth. Each lesson, each shared moment, deepened their bond. The farmer began to notice changes in himself. He walked taller, spoke more confidently, and felt a growing strength in his heart. He knew that people would continue to talk, that the world might not understand this unusual friendship. But he also knew that he had found someone who believed in him, someone who had awakened feelings he had long thought impossible. One afternoon, they walked along the fields together, the sun warm on their backs. The Apache woman stopped and turned to him. "I know it is not easy," she said. "But life is full of choices. Some are simple, some are difficult. But every choice shapes the future. Are you ready to choose?" The farmer looked into her eyes and felt a surge of clarity. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I think. I am ready. I want to try. I want to trust you. And I want to see what life can be. Together." Her face lit up with a gentle, triumphant smile. "Then we will face it together," she said. "No matter what comes, we will face it together." From that day on, their partnership grew stronger. They planned for the future with care, making decisions together and supporting one another. The townsfolk began to see the strength of their connection, noticing the mutual respect and affection that bound them. Slowly, the whispers turned to admiration. People began to understand that what mattered was not gossip, but the sincerity and love between two people willing to take a chance on life. Months passed, and the promise of a new life became real. The farmer learned to care in ways he had never known, understanding responsibility not just for the land and animals, but for another human being growing quietly inside the woman he had come to love. She, in turn, continued to guide him, teaching patience, empathy, and the beauty of nurturing a life with care and intention. Through every challenge, every uncertain moment, they supported one another. Their days were filled with laughter, small joys, and quiet conversations under the open sky. The shy farmer, once isolated in his routine, had discovered a life richer than he had ever imagined. And the Apache woman had found a companion who, despite his shyness, was capable of deep love, loyalty, and courage. As the first signs of their child's arrival approached, the farmer felt a sense of pride and wonder he had never known. He looked at the woman, standing strong and radiant beside him, and realized that life, though unpredictable, had a way of leading those who dared to trust. The journey had been unexpected, challenging, and sometimes frightening, but it had brought them together in a bond that was unbreakable. The story closed not with an ending, but with a beginning. A beginning filled with hope, love, and the promise of a future shaped by trust, courage, and the choice to embrace life fully. The shy farmer, once a man of quiet routine, had become a man ready to face the world, to nurture new life, and to live with a heart open to possibilities he had never dared to dream. And as the sun set over the fields, casting a warm glow over the land, the farmer and the Apache woman walked hand in hand, ready to step into the next chapter of their lives together, brave and filled with hope.